Here we go. All right. Hi, everybody. Let's see. I see some of you are still connecting. All right. All right. Hi. I am Carrie, and I work on the Andersons events team, which I think is one of the luckiest jobs in the whole entire world. And we're here tonight with Jamie Sumner and Kathleen, who some of you might register or recognize from our Downers Grove store. And we are so excited to have you guys here tonight. A couple of little things I'm going to let you know. We have your cameras and your microphones turned off during the presentation. There might be a point where you're allowed to turn those on later on during the question and answer, which brings me to my point about question and answer. Actually, if any of you guys have questions during the event, please go ahead and put them in the chat. I will be monitoring those, and I will be letting them know about those questions, and we will answer those at the end. Other than that, I just wanted to, again, I can't say thank you enough times for people coming and supporting our virtual events program. We are living through an unprecedented time right now, but it's not the first time actually that Andersons has been through this, because believe it or not, we have been selling books independently since 1875. And we made it through that Spanish flu in 1918, and we're going to make it through this pandemic too. And again, you guys being here and supporting the program allows us to continue to bring high quality programming to you, even through unconventional means in this unconventional time. That said, we are building this program with virtual events from the ground up. So if you are able to at any time shoot me a little email right there at my email address that's above my head. I would love to hear about your experience with this event. Any other events you've been to, like anything you think we should add or take out, or anything to make this a better experience for you guys. So that's there. And with that said, I am going to pop out and let Jamie and Kathleen take it from here. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Carrie. All right. And like Carrie said, everybody, thank you guys so much for coming here. I have been so stinking excited about, I was hoping that we could have Jamie roll with it. And I think we tried, and, you know, we just couldn't get it to match. And then of course, COVID. And I was like, well, there goes another event with Jamie. So I'm so glad that we were able to do this. And I'm going to give you guys all a little inside information. This isn't even public knowledge, but for those of you that have been followers of Andersons in the past, you know that every year we put out a list of what we consider to be the best kids books published that year. And that's our Mock Newbery list. And Roll With It was on our Mock Newbery list last year, and this year Tune It Out will be on our list as well. Yeah, it was a no-brainer, right? Like, yeah. It was so funny because I marked it as a table pounder, which means, okay, y'all, I'm going to throw down to make sure this book stays on our list. And then one of the other evaluators, Carolyn Royce, who works at our Naperville store, read it and texted me and was like, oh yeah, no, it's on, trust me. So congratulations.
And you guys are so good at predicting. I mean, like, it's scary. Like the books that end up on your list, I mean, it's not scary because obviously you know what you're doing. That's why you're a bookseller.
Yeah, we just make it really well.
Books that end up on your list always show up. I mean, you see them. They're in the awards.
Yep. And this year we're gonna try and tweak the program a little bit since we're kind of in this virtual reality. So kids, watch our website because you guys will have the opportunity to participate and vote on your own. You don't necessarily have to go through your schools this year. So keep your eyes open. Like I said, we're still finalizing the list, but definitely Lou and her story are going to be on it. So
that's so exciting. You know, I love you guys, and it was so fun talking about it last year when the list came out.
Yay. So, well, thank you, Jamie, for coming tonight and for giving us another book that we just all adore. I mean, everybody that I have given this book to, from staff to readers to everybody, has absolutely adored Lou and her story. So let's just start right there. Where did this flower of a story grow from?
So it's so funny because stories come from the strangest of places. Like, you can't, at least I can't ever predict where my ideas will come from. And this one actually came from 2 different places. So Roll With It was last year, and it's about a girl named Ellie who has cerebral palsy, and she wants to be a famous baker, and she moves to a new town, and she has to like kind of start over. And that was based on my son, Charlie, who has CP and is in a wheelchair, because there just aren't a lot of books that have kids in wheelchairs on them, especially that are the main protagonists of the story. And I think, you know, all you guys watching, it's fun to read about someone else who is different from you, because you can kind of walk alongside them on their journey, and you kind of can feel what they're feeling, and you get to be them for a little bit, when in reality you would never be able to do that. And so that was really fun for me. And then for the kids that do have CP out there that never get to see themselves, you know, like I'm sure you guys all have that moment where you're reading a book and you're like, that person thinks just like me, or that happened to me. And it's so exciting because you're like, someone else has felt this. And so that's kind of where Roll With It came from. And then part of what Tune It Out stemmed from was also Charlie. So the main character in Tune It Out has a sensory processing disorder. And what that is, if you don't know, it's basically, the best way to describe it is like, it's like a traffic jam of all your senses. So like if you don't have a sensory processing disorder, you can kind of walk down the street, you can have a conversation, you can hear a loud sound, and it doesn't bother you. But if you have SPD, that loud sound almost overrides everything else, and you cannot think past it, you cannot feel past it. It overwhelms you. And it's not just about learning to cope, it's part of who you are, and it's hard to explain to other people because it's an invisible disability. Like you can't tell someone has it just by looking at them. And it could be anything. It can be light. It could be like touch. Like maybe you're someone who needs firm touch versus like a high five would be really hard, or like a soft touch would be really hard. It could be clothes. Like if something is particularly itchy or has a weird feel to it, it's all you would think about all day at school. It could be different foods. It could be crowds. If you feel people getting too close to you, that's part of it. And so Lou in the book has a sensory processing disorder like my son, but Lou, as far as the whole musical aspect, because like she basically, if you need for real quick to tell you the premise of the book. So she basically, like if you heard her sing, if you were watching The Voice, you would be like, she's going to win. She's got to win. Like everybody would vote for Lou. But because she has this SPD, performing is just terrifying. Like it's just the worst thing she can imagine, because what if they all of a sudden erupt in applause, which they're going to do because she's amazing? Or what if somebody comes up and tries to like hug her or shake her hand, or all these things? It's just sends her into an overload. But her mom wants her to be that star, and so pushes her into these situations. So that's kind of how the book gets started. But where I got the idea for the music is actually from Roll With It, because there's a character in Roll With It named Coralie. And she's like Miss Sassy Pants. Like she's like, I am going to be a triple threat. I'm going to sing, dance, and act. She like sings the national anthem at a basketball game and drops the mic. Like she is the opposite of Lou. Like she loves attention. She wants all the attention, and she is singing and kind of does the like beauty pageant state fair circuit, and she wants to be famous. And so this idea for Lou and Tune It Out came from this idea that I couldn't shake after I finished Roll With It, which was like, what if you had the talent to be amazing at something, but what you needed, like as a person, was the opposite of that talent? Like what you needed to grow as a person and to feel taken care of and to feel strong for who you are was the opposite of what everyone was telling you need to do. Because Lou could be famous, but just because you're good at something doesn't mean that's something that has to define you. And so that's kind of where the story came from, because I wanted to kind of think about like, you know, when you're in middle school and elementary school, people kind of tell you what you're good at, and they say you're really good at this, and you kind of latch on to these different sports or like certain subjects in school, and it's really a thing of pride. Like you're like, I'm a math kid, or like, I like reading, or, you know, whatever it is. But it takes a certain kind of strength to explore other parts of yourself and really learn who you are apart from what people tell you you are. Like you have to really, like you could be good at something and not like it. Like maybe you're really good at math, but you don't really like it. And that's a really hard thing to say to grownups and teachers, that like, yeah, but maybe I don't want to like become a mathematician just because I know how to do this equation, you know? And so it takes bravery as a kid to be able to do that. So that's kind of what Tune It Out is. It's about Lou finding her voice in the right way that would make her happy, not just the people around her.
And I like that both Lou from Tune It Out and Ellie from Roll With It, they're such strong characters. And as a parent, as an adult reading these books, I'm just constantly reminded that, you know, we don't give our kids enough credit. So all of you guys that are here, you know, yay you. For, again, like Carrie was saying at the beginning, we're living in unprecedented times. And us adults are just as clueless about what's going on. And, you know, we're the ones that are supposed to be leading the way. But when we have books like Roll With It, like Tune It Out, as adults reading it, we're reminded of just how resilient and strong you kids are. I mean, you know, Ellie, in addition to living with CP, right, she has to deal with moving. She finds out that her grandfather is diagnosed with Alzheimer's. And there's the potential of putting him in a nursing home, in a facility, you know, and Lou, not to give too many spoilers for those of you that haven't read it and Tune It Out, you know, she and her mom are not living in a healthy environment at all. And the one person that's supposed to be protecting Lou is not doing the best job at it. And so Lou has, her life, you know, is turned upside down as well. But both characters just handle that with such grace, and not to say it's perfect, right? They, you know, make mistakes along the way too. So I think that's where that authenticity comes from, Jamie, as we're reading your stories, is because they are so close to you personally, they resonate with us as well. So do you have a lot of adults who are reading your books that may not have, you know, kids at home?
I do. Well, the adults that I hear from the most are teachers. Mm-hmm. Teachers that are reading it and are just so glad because they recognize students that they've had in the past who have dealt with these things, and they now have a book that they can recommend to these kids when they're feeling lost, you know, or disheartened. And I think the other thing about these books that I think would make anybody want to read them, not just those who've experienced this, is that all the emotions that Ellie and Roll With It and Lou and Tune It Out go through are things that everybody goes through. Like, it's not like because you have CP, you're going to be scared on the first day of school at a new school. No, everybody's scared on the first day of school. Or because you have CP or a sensory processing disorder, you're going to wonder where you're going to sit in the cafeteria. No, everybody wonders that. You know, everybody has a teacher they're scared of, or a teacher they love, or, you know, a subject they want to try. I mean, Lou gets involved in musical theater, like she takes a theater class, and it's terrifying to her. But because she finds like a friend that she trusts, she does it. And like, how many of us don't do that? Like, you're like, well, if my friend does it, I'm going to do it. I'm going to see. And it lets you experience new things because you have this safe person to do it with. Like, so the things that they feel in the stories are things that everybody feels. It's not just about the CP or the sensory processing disorder, which I think is really important because we all feel the same things no matter what else we've got going on.
Right. It's reminding everybody that, you know, we can handle a lot and the real world happens and everything, you know, we're all sharing a lot of the same experiences. Mm-hmm. And I think that's important.
Especially right now, we're all feeling weird and scared and wondering what the world is looking like. And I'll tell you what, I think kids are the bravest and most resilient. Like, you guys are so good at trusting that the future will be brighter than the present. And I take my cues from you guys. I take my cues from my kids and from you guys that are out there and just living life. And it makes me encouraged to see you guys be braver than me.
So, but let's talk a little bit about, all of that. And you and I kind of touched on this in the email, is how do you balance having, the big issues, the SPD, the CP, and then again, all of the daily life issues. How do you balance that in the story so that it doesn't become, as I like to say, the, oh, come on moments, right? When I can't believe you're giving this character one more thing to deal with, enough is enough. Where, again, Ellie's got the move, she's got the issues with her grandfather. Lou has a change as well, going to school for the first time. She's got relatives she's never met before. She's got, her mom, worrying about her mom's own safety. How do you balance all of that so that it doesn't feel like you're just throwing the nuts on top of the sundae and the cherry and the whipped cream and the
sad, depressing Sunday?
Right, exactly.
So, okay, this is my, I think it comes from my attitude that I don't always approach things this way, but I would like to, like in an ideal version of myself, this is what I would do. I think it's more about how Lou and Ellie approach things than it is about the things themselves. So like Ellie is really tough and fierce and sassy and sarcastic. Like that is just how she will tell it like it is. Like that is just how she is. And she has some big dreams. She wants to be this baker. She writes letters to these chefs that like in no uncertain terms tells them how she feels about their recipes. I mean, she just speaks her mind. And I think a character like that going through anything will make it so much less heavy because she feels strongly, but she's also strong. And then Lou, and there's some funny things enroll with it. I mean, like she can't get down the gravel drive, and so she'll text Coralie next door to be like, Uber me. And so Coralie will come over and push the wheelchair for her because she can't do it in the gravel. It's just funny stuff like that that keeps it lighthearted enough that you're not like, oh, one thing and then another, And then same thing with Lou. So Lou's friend, he used to go by Maxwell, and then he just recently went through a whole self-renovation, and he now would like to be called Well, and he's an actor. He wants to be a famous actor, and he's so funny, and he is like the light for Lou. Like he is the light, and so every scene with him in it is just brighter. I mean, I finished writing the book, and I wanted Well to be real so bad that like I was sad to let him go. And I might not let him go. He might have to
I'm with you. I loved Coralie too. Like both of those characters, I want stories.
Could you imagine if those two met? If those two were in production together?
Oh my God, that would be like the best thing ever.
It would be hilarious.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, yeah. So I think even though there's tough subjects, like the way it's dealt with like humor and strength and silliness is what keeps it light. Yeah,
I would agree. And again, it never feels top heavy and realistic. That's the other thing. It's believable, and that's important, and that's what I tell people who come to me all the time asking for advice. I want to write for kids. What's the best thing you can tell me? And I'm like, don't talk down to them. Don't talk down to your readers. Our kids are intelligent. They are compassionate. They know what they're looking for. And I think that's one of the reasons that, Ellie and Lou's story resonates so much with them, because it's such an honest story for you to tell. And I love that. So thank you. The other thing that I think you do really well is you are helping us build that bridge of empathy for those of us that don't have CP, that aren't confined to a wheelchair, that don't have SPD, that scene, again, trying not to give too many spoilers, in Tune It Out, where they think that the music scouts are there in the audience at the, oh my God, that for me, I was like, oh, I get it a little bit better after reading Tune It Out than I did before. And not to say that I will at all be 100% able to understand what somebody with SPD is experiencing, but books like Tune It Out just really help me get into the mindset and to see it through Lou's eyes. Mm-hmm. Just, opened that world. So thank you. How is that process for you? Did it kind of flow naturally for you, or?
So this is the part where like all of the kids in the room may roll your eyes at me. But so kids, as a parent, this is a news flash, we watch you guys go through things, and I swear I think I feel it almost more than you guys. Like, you're sad, I'm sad times a million. You're scared, I'm scared times a million for you, because I don't want you to be scared. And so I think seeing Charlie go through some of the things that I describe as far as the emotions and some situations helped me to write characters that really felt like deep in their bones, these different things. And I think, like I said earlier, all of these things that they're feeling are things that we all feel, even though their situations aren't my situation. But more specifically, because I wanted to do justice to, especially with Lou and Tune It Out, I wanted to do justice to those that do have SPD. I had readers read it early on that have a sensory processing disorder, to make sure that the experience was authentic to what they knew. And also occupational therapists that work with kids with SPD, to make sure that they're like, yeah, this is accurate. This is what I see. This is what they've told me. Because I'm sure y'all have had to write papers where you had to do research and you had to pull facts together and you had to make your argument. And that's kind of what writing a book is too, because I can't live every experience I write. So what I have to do is really, 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 really do my research so much that I feel like I've lived it and can be there, so that I do justice to what I'm talking about. So that's kind of what I did, especially with Tune It Out, is I just made sure to really do my research and let myself feel all those things that I think that my characters are feeling, to the point that it becomes real for me, so that I can make it real for the reader.
And I think kind of continuing that, making it real for the reader, I love that your parents are flawed, because I would love to admit that I was the perfect mom. But I know I wasn't. And I love that, number one, that your parents are flawed, because we all make mistakes too. But, so I want to talk a little bit about that. But also, because parents are flawed, and because we sometimes make really bad decisions for our kids and really bad choices for our kids, you surrounded them with some of the best friends that they could ask for. Again, going back to Coralie, going back to Well. So I love that you're working on these side characters, because they're just as important as well to Lou and to Ellie.
Well, when you're that age, I think your friends are everything. You spend more time with your friends than you do your parents by a long shot, and they see what you go through at school, and they're feeling the same things, and they're at the same stage of life. So it only makes sense that those are the people that you're going to want to go to when things get hard, or that will get it and respond in the right way when things are hard. Whereas your parents may be a little more out of touch to what you're going through.
Yeah. Or, like we saw in the books, we sometimes get wrapped up in our own drama and our own burdens that we're carrying, that sometimes we forget what's going on outside of us. And that's exactly what's happening to both parents in those stories. Mm-hmm. Lou's mom, I think you could make an argument for neglect, but Yeah, she was not the best mom. And there were times I really just wanted to just go tap her on the forehead, maybe a little bit firmer than that, and be like, come on, wake up. So.
Well, and I think with that story in particular, the drama between Lou and her mom is a much bigger deal than, say, the drama between Ellie and her mom. It is very much kind of almost the central conflict in the story is like how that's going to play out between the two of them, because it's not like Lou's mom is a cliche stage mom. Like she loves her kid. She just doesn't get her kid. And so because of that, she doesn't do the right things for her. And she's kind of going through her own crisis of like identity and everything else. Because she did become a mom so young, and she's kind of still young in a lot of ways. And so she's trying to take care of them the best she can. She just doesn't know what that is.
Right. And she didn't ask for help from her family, right? So she was trying to do it all on her own. And I love that kind of little side message of sometimes you can't do it by yourself, and you need others and you need help. One of the things that I really kind of wanted to talk on was the topic of forgiveness, because that's especially in Lou's story, that's a huge thing, because there is that scene where, you know, she kind of confronts her mom and, you know, spills out, you know, what she's been feeling, but then she's got to kind of forgive her mom and work on piecing that relationship back together. And Elle does that a little bit in Roll With It, not to the extent. I mean, she's got to forgive her for, you know, moving her into the middle of nowhere at Christmas time and not being honest with her about it. And she's got to work on forgiving her mom for wanting to put her grandfather in a care facility. But I wanted to talk a little bit about that. Was that an intentional thing? Like you wanted to, you know, have that kind of message of forgiveness in the story, or is that just me picking up on stuff?
I think that human relationships in general are about 75% forgiveness anyway.
Yes.
If you're in it for the long haul.
Right.
And so I think naturally that was going to come about, because whenever you have conflict, whether it's resolved or not, you have to address how you're going to get through it, even if there's no actual resolution. Like, how are you going to come out on the other side? And the only way to come out when it's conflict with someone else is to let yourself forgive them, even if they don't do anything redemptive to earn that forgiveness, because you at some point have to let it go. Like if you've been fighting with a friend in school for a year, it's like, you know, the saga of the year. At some point you have to let it go enough so that you can move on, so that you can be the bigger person, even if that other person isn't. And so it's kind of this idea, that forgiveness idea is one that I think everybody needs to work on. And so, yeah, it naturally came out in the books, because when you're hurt, you can choose to hold on to the hurt, or you can choose to let it go and figure yourself out, and they can figure themselves out, and you don't have to hold it so closely. And so that's kind of where that came from.
And I think your writing experience, you know, your past has really kind of helped you, you know, kind of become this, you know, powerful children's author with this amazing voice and these great stories to tell. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that journey, because what people may not realize is that you were a published author before you started writing for kids. I had read a couple of your articles before I found out Roll With It was coming out. So how do you go from that to deciding you wanted to write a kid's book?
So, yeah, it's funny. So I actually have an article coming out at the end of September this month in the New York Times. And I still write for the New York Times and the Washington Post, nonfiction stuff. But I think it's so funny because, like, in my head, they're not that different. And I'm trying to figure out how to explain this, because it's kind of like nonfiction or fiction, you're still trying to make your reader care about what you're talking about long enough to get to the end, and then walk away with some sort of like slightly different vision of the world than they had when they started, whether it's fiction or nonfiction that you're telling. And so in my mind, it's almost like I could keep writing nonfiction, but I'm going to run out of stories to tell about myself and my family and the world. So I might as well just jump into fiction, because then I get to play with the world all I want for like the rest of my life. And I love writing middle grade. Like, it is magic. You guys are magic, because that's the age where like you'll read anything and you're just trying to figure out what kind of books you like, and reading is awesome and cool and fun. And so I would much rather write fiction for kids than write nonfiction for adults that are way less fun than you guys. So like, that's kind of like where it's like I'm putting all my eggs in one basket. It is middle grade fiction, because not only is it fun to tell the stories, but it's also fun for me to go to school visits and to do stuff like this, because then I get to meet you guys, and you guys are so great. And so what more could you ask for than like fun fans and then fun subjects? And so that's kind of like what has kept me. I have 3 more books coming out in the next 3 years.
Ooh.
And that's what, yeah. And that's what keeps me kind of going, because I just want to keep doing this so I can keep talking to you guys. Oh, Kathleen, you'll love this. The next protagonist is a boy.
Okay, good.
And he is like, he's called the garbologist, and he sifts through people's trash. He sifts through people's trash, and he can tell you anything about the person if you bring him their trash.
I love it. And when is this book coming out?
Next fall.
Ooh.
October. Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I'm deep in the edits right now. Like, deep in the edits. So
Nice. Did you have to do a lot of research on that? Like, what does it really feel like to dig through garbage?
Listen, I have kids. I know what it's like to dig through garbage. That's all I do every day is dig through garbage. Look in their backpack. It's full of garbage.
That's right. As soon as the question left my mouth, I'm like, oh, she's a mom. She gets it. Because all of a sudden I had flashbacks of, oh my God, I threw away my contact case in the garbage can, or something stupid like that. And I'm like, ugh.
Or your retainer. I threw away my retainer once in a restaurant garbage.
Thank God we never had to go the retainer route in my house.
Me. Terrible. Had it all. Had it all, man.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. So you like to write middle grade? Do you like to read middle grade?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah? What are you reading?
So I'm trying to think of the most recent thing. So what's on my list to read next is I want to read Kelly Yang's 3 Keys.
Yeah.
And that like just came out.
Right.
But I read...
And that's the sequel to Front Desk, everybody, if you didn't know that. Sorry.
Oh, yeah. The Front Desk is her first one. And and the 3 Keys is the sequel.
Yeah.
But I just finished Genesis Begins Again, which I loved.
Yeah.
Oh, I loved it so much.
Yeah.
Oh, and guys, fun tip. If you like a book, you can write to the author, and they will very likely write you back, because now the author of Genesis Begins Again, she and I are friends. We're friends now, because I decided as a fellow author just to write her some fan mail, and I did, and it's fun and it's great.
That's good. I'm glad to hear you say that, because I tell kids all the time, and if you like it, and I flip to the back where the author's website is, go write them, and they'll love to hear from you. And
I love getting the mail.
Okay, good, because I keep waiting for the author to give me a call and be like, stop telling kids to just reach out to me.
Then that person needs to get a new job.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Okay, so as you take a big sip of water, what else are you reading that you're really loving these days?
So I read, the 3 times, what's it called? 3 Times Lucky. Mm-hmm. I don't know how I didn't read that back in the day, but I loved that. Okay. Free Lunch.
Oh yeah, that was a good one.
I'm actually about to do a conversation with Rex Ogle, the author of that one, at Politics and Prose in a couple weeks. And, I love it so much.
Nice.
Like I want to be friends with him now too, because it's just so heartfelt. And there's so many things that overlap with that book and Tune It Out.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to have to go back and reread that then. Yeah. I like it.
Oh, and okay, so here's, we'll stop talking books in just a second.
No.
But Dusty Bowling's new in The Canyon's Edge.
Oh my God, you guys. Okay, so wink, wink, nudge, nudge. That one might be on the Mock Newberry with you. Yeah.
I love her so much.
White knuckle read, like I could not stop on that one. Exactly.
Yeah.
So you've got 3 books you said coming out. You told us a little bit about one. Can you give us any inside scoop on the other 2?
So One Kid's Trash is the name of the next one. And if you guys don't know that reference, it's from a quote, one man's trash is another man's treasure. So that's the next one. And then the one after that is basically a love letter to libraries. It's called The Summer of June, and it's about a girl whose mom is the YA librarian in this really small town library. And June is her name. June is the kid's name, and she decides this summer she's going to do 2 things. She's going to find her mom a man, and she is going to overcome her anxiety. So she has a lot of anxiety, and she's like, I'm done. I'm going to get mom a man, and I'm going to get over my anxiety. And she goes on this mission, and it all takes place around this little small library, which is really fun.
Oh, I can't wait to hear that, to read that one either.
Yep. And then the next one after that is called Schooled. Again, the title may change, but it's called Schooled, and it's all about this kid it's another male protagonist. It's a boy whose dad decides to uproot them, and he takes a job as a professor out of college. And after this kid's mom passes away, they uproot their lives and they go to this college, and the dad enlists his kid in an experimental middle school because he doesn't want his kid to have to go through all the angst of middle school after losing his mom. So it's basically a school that is all the professor's kids, and it's on the college campus.
Okay. That almost sounds...
What could go wrong with that?
Right. That's almost like a horror story.
12-year-old kids running around a college campus with free reign.
Yeah, nothing's going to go wrong in that story. Nothing. No. Well, I could sit here and talk all night with you, Miss Jamie, but I think now is a good time to see if our attendees, if our friends have any questions that they want to ask about.
Yeah, if you want to, you can turn on your cameras now so I can see you and you can ask questions.
Yes.
All right. Hi, everyone. That was great. I have to tell you something kind of exciting. You mentioned 3 keys.
Yeah.
And that is, I mean, I know it's one that everyone's really been looking forward to, and it came out this week. And this is somewhat snarky, but I just want to say that there's a certain online retailer that it turns out is unable to ship those books as promised, even though they had a lot of pre-orders for it. But we at Anderson's Bookshop have tons of copies, and we can ship it out right away. So feel free to head on over to our website and look that up if you're interested, or call us to reserve a copy. I just had to slip that in there because it's just kind of delicious when I get the opportunity.
Yep.
All right, so we are going to head into some questions here. I don't see any in the chat, actually. We have a very quiet group tonight. So what I'm really going to encourage you guys is to go ahead. You can turn your cameras on if you want Jamie to see you, and I want you to go ahead and put those questions through the chat. I have one, actually, Jamie, while we're waiting to see if anyone else chimes in, and that is that Lou has SPD, sensory processing disorder, and I have noticed that there's a large correlation between that, or people usually associate sensory processing disorder, which is hard to say, with autism spectrum disorder. And I know a lot of kids who have autism that also have sensory processing disorder, but actually I think the majority of kids with sensory processing disorder do not have autism. And I was wondering if that was on purpose, that you made her just have sensory processing disorder.
Yeah, it was very much on purpose, because I think if I had made her also have autism, this book would immediately have become about a girl with autism, because it's like once that diagnosis is there, it overrides everything else. And there are so many, like you said, there's so many kids that don't have autism that do have sensory issues that are just as important to be recognized as everything else. They deserve to see that apart from another diagnosis. And so, yeah, that was very intentional because it's much more common than I think people realize. I mean, there's a whole line of, you know, the Cat and Jack clothing line at Target is all like, it's tagless and it's soft material and it's seamless. And it's because kids that have sensitivities to those kinds of like textures of clothing and things like that, like if Target is making a whole line for it, you can probably assume that there's a lot of people that have it.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. That's kind of my feeling too, is it's like, it's just this very common thing that I don't feel like a lot of people have a huge grasp on or an understanding of how it drives so many parts of our kids' lives. And even as an adult, I think there are a lot of adults who have a lot of sensory issues as well. But I've always been fascinated by the link between sensory processing disorder and behavior in children, and how sometimes people can, well-meaning, I don't know, like in a grocery store, come up to you and say like, oh, you need to come down firmer on that kid, or, oh, you know, and they don't realize that the child is really struggling in that moment. They aren't misbehaving. I think it happens a lot frequently in school as well.
Well, and again, that's something you get a lot with invisible disabilities, because if you can't see that something is wrong, the initial reaction, if you're not familiar with it, is to come down hard on it because you think they don't have enough self-control. And that's not what it's about. It's not about self-control. Their reality is very difficult and they're walking through a different version of it than you are. And just because you don't feel the world the way they do doesn't make it their version less valid.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. I love that, actually. It does not make their version less valid.
Right. And
just
I think
their experience is different than yours.
Yeah. And I think that was, you know, with Ellie's story too, right? She's confined to a wheelchair, but it does not diminish the intelligence that she has, the personality. I mean, she's, you know, other than she's in a wheelchair, you know, she's this bright, smart, fun, you know, kid. And I think, again, as adults, sometimes reading it, we're like, oh, they're in a wheelchair. And you just assume you know, you take your vocabulary down, you don't make eye contact with them. It's
treat them like they're probably 3 years younger than they are.
Yep. Talk extra loud to them when that's like the worst thing to do. I know.
She says that on her first day of school. One of the teachers, she's like, and I had one teacher yell at me the entire class because they thought apparently CP had something to do with my hearing. I mean, like that.
It is kind of funny that that's a shared experience. Okay, we do have a question. Yay, this is from Nisha. Nisha, I am a pediatric occupational therapist, and I'm so excited to read this book. I know, right? Hero. I am so excited to read this book. It is great for kids who may have SPD to relate to, and for other friends to expand their knowledge about their peers. So it wasn't a question, it was more like a statement. But thank you, Nisha, and thank you for what you do.
Oh, I'm so eager to read this book. I cannot wait. And I also can't wait to read your previous book. It's so exciting to just, you know that there are books out there, kids who may be going through some of these things, for them to be able to relate and, you know, read that, and for their peers to just open their eyes to things too.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. One of the best school visits that ended up being virtual, but one of the best school visits I did was to a class that they had a boy that had CP and was mostly nonverbal and was in a wheelchair. And that whole class read the book together with him. Oh, and then I got to talk to this class, and it was incredible. I mean, it was one of the best experiences that I've ever had. And it's basically why I wrote the book in the first place, with stuff like that, because they all got it. I mean, they got it. And he was so happy to have himself seen and understood almost for the first time. Like, the class was collectively cheering him on for things that they hadn't even paid attention to before. So
yeah, and good for our parents too, to read and open their eyes to things too, because there's a lot of education that needs to go around.
Yep, exactly. And not to tout another author's book. I don't know if you've read Tornado Brain yet, Jamie, by Kat Patrick. So Nisha, that might be one that you might want to read as well. Tornado Brain. That's another one that she has. She's on the spectrum. I can't remember. She might have SPD too. I can't remember. Amy, you were nodding like you've read that one, so I didn't know Yeah. Oh, you're still muted. Sorry.
I'm still muted here. Let me see if I can unmute you.
But
nodding because that's
okay.
That's on my bedside table.
Okay.
The next read. So.
Yes. Okay, good. So you guys, with Jamie's books and then Tornado Brain, you've got 3 great books right there that are going to help the kids you work with and adults as well kind of bridge that, create those bridges of empathy so that we can start to understand a little bit better what their daily life is like.
Mm-hmm.
And that it's not the most interesting thing about them. I think that's what I love with it too. And what my kids got out of it too, was just like, oh, here's this totally normal kid who just happens to be in a wheelchair, right? You guys mentioned Dusty Bowling earlier, and I thought that was really well done in her first book too, where where it doesn't even stop her, right? That she has this disability. And I think we just need so much more of that type of representation in books. It's phenomenal. So
yeah. And with Lou, right? She's a singer, and it just so happens that SPD or the CP for Ellie, it's just another piece of the mosaic that creates the beautiful picture that these kids are. So thank you for that, Jamie.
Yes. Representation matters.
Yes. In a positive light.
Yes.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
Yes, exactly. In a strong character. Like the fact that this is a strong female with SPD, it's just like amazing.
Yeah.
Goosebumps.
Oh my gosh, yes, because it's not like she says at one point, people see me in this chair and they think I'm all sunshine and cuddles, and that's not who she is. I mean, she can be funny and she can be sassy, and it's not like she's just this kind of penciled in character that's like kind of a watercolor version of a regular person. Like if anything, Ellie is in high definition and she wants people to know it.
Yeah.
I love her sarcasm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Ellie's sarcasm.
Yeah.
Her mom's always telling her not to be so snarky, and then of course you see her thoughts, which are extra snarky back.
I like her snarkiness.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think.
I think Amy's got a question.
Oh, sorry, Amy.
It's more of a continuing on this thread. I was so excited for this opportunity to hear you speak, and I am thrilled to find out that there's a whole new nonfiction part to your writings that I was unaware of. So I'm going to be sifting through those, you better bet. But I have been thrilled. I'm a public children's librarian at a public library. And one of my favorite group of kids is the 3rd through 5th graders, so right in your audience, that I have in a book club called Smart Cookies. And we read books. I'm guessing the kids are probably aware of this now, but it's trying to get them to see their lives from different perspectives. And so yours will be, I have to wait till it comes out in paperback, which I believe is January, right? Or coming soon.
Roll with it. It just came out
in paperback.
Oh, it's already out.
Yes.
In paperback. Oh, okay. All right. So I have that scheduled in later this year. But I just using these excellent books with these complete characters where it's not a kid in a wheelchair or a kid with autism, but it's an intricate, interesting child with a great sense of humor who gets tired and snarky and fights with their parents. Whether it's, we're going to do El Defo next week.
That's a good one.
Oh, good.
We've done A Boy Named Bat, A Boy Called Bat, sorry, and the follow-ons. So Finding Langston was another great one.
Fish in a Tree is another good one.
Yeah.
Tree, Counting by Sevens. So just, I am so thankful for these good books, good characters that really in our discussions in this book club, we get to see the world from different perspectives more than we ever could just by our own lived experience. So, but it's a treat to read your writing because you do it so well. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for, you're going to love the summer of June because it's all about the library. And now that I'm thinking about that, I'm like, oh, you're going to love it.
Yeah.
In your wheelhouse.
Perfect.
That's funny.
So you'll be emailing us the manuscript all so that we can, right? Okay, perfect. Yeah.
I'll
Love
take All right. Well, I think you ladies did such a great job in your conversation that nobody actually has any questions. You answered them all because that was the only question we had come through.
If you think of questions later, like I said before, you can email me. I will answer.
Stalk her on Twitter. That's how we met.
Kathleen does it.
Yeah. Right after I read Roll With It, I was immediately all over social media going, okay, where is she? I gotta find her.
We send each other gifts all the time.
Yes, we'll have entire conversations on Twitter.
They're just cartoons dancing at each other, basically.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, so go stalk her on social media. She loves it.
Join on that. All right. Okay, well then, if there's no more questions, then I think we're going to go ahead and say good night. I know it's probably getting to be about dinner time for everybody, at least here in the Central Time Zone. Yeah. So, once again,
I'm in Nashville. We're Central.
You're Central, so you're probably, your tummy's starting to growl.
We cook for everybody.
I know, now I have to figure out what to make for dinner.
You should pull the famous author card at least once a week, right? I'm sorry. I've been too busy writing, guys. You're going to have to take care.
That's such a good idea.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm here for.
Working, people.
Right. That's right.
Love it. Okay, so I did put a link to order the book in the comments of the chat in case any of you are looking to do that. You can get on our website. You can call our store. We can do curbside pickup. We can ship it out anywhere in the United States. Jamie was nice enough to send us signed book plates, so they will all be signed books, which is always really fun and also make really great gifts. The holidays are coming. So other than that, I just want to remind you that is my email address up there. If anybody has any feedback on the event, because we are finding ourselves in this virtual landscape and we are building this virtual events program from the ground up. Anderson's used to put on, 400 author events a year. So this is a whole new world for us. And a lot of other bookstores are looking to us, actually thinking that we're going to be the ones that figure this out. So we're doing our best. But we would really love to have feedback from you guys on how the ticketing process went and how, the length, anything. So go ahead and shoot me an email if you have anything. And then other than that, thank you so much for coming. I just can't state enough to a small business how much your support of our programming matters. So
amen.
Yes. All right. Good night, everybody.
Well, Jamie, thank you. And it was good to finally see you in person.
We should just Zoom each other all the time.
Sounds like a plan. Sundays and Mondays are my days off. So. But not this Sunday. I'm moving this weekend. So.
Oh, heavens.
Yeah. So.
Okay. That'll be fun.
Yeah.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.